The stars twinkled cold and distant beyond the shuttle's forward viewport, uncaring sentinels in the silence of space. Commander Tom Reed sat rigid in his seat, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the growing silhouette ahead. Outpost Epsilon. The station floated at the edge of known space like a forgotten relic, its metal limbs stretching out in 8 directions, illuminated by the soft white glow of artificial lighting. It reminded him of a spider lurking in its web, and though he didn't believe in omens, something about it unsettled him. After 6 months of inter-system patrols that had blurred into one another, being reassigned to this distant post felt like punishment. Senior officers were rarely sent to outposts this remote unless something significant, something serious was happening. And Reed had a gut instinct honed over years in the field. Something was off. The shuttle rumbled faintly as magnetic clamps locked it into docking arm 3. A mechanical voice echoed through the cabin, announcing that it was now safe to disembark. Reed grabbed his bag and personal tablet, rose, and made his way toward the airlock. As the doors hissed open, a rush of familiar recycled air greeted him. Tinged with the sterile scent of steel, oil, and the unshakable echo of isolation. Waiting just beyond the threshold stood a young officer in a pressed uniform, who snapped TO attention the moment Reed appeared. "Commander Reed, welcome to Outpost Epsilon. I'm Lieutenant Davis. Admiral Gordon asked me to escort you to the command center immediately." Reed lifted an eyebrow. "Immediately? I haven't even been assigned quarters yet." "The Admiral was very clear, sir," Davis said, voice tight. He said it's urgent. Without further comment, Reed followed the lieutenant through the main concourse. The station was far more crowded than he expected. Technicians hustled between terminals. Engineers shouted over malfunctioning panels, but it was the aliens that drew his eye. Clustered in small groups, they huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Species from 6 star systems filled the promenade, but many of them appeared tense, anxious. Some avoided looking at him entirely. Others looked too long. "What's going on?" Reed asked as they passed a pair of Arcadians whispering. "Near a sealed cargo hatch." "This station feels like it's holding its breath." Davis hesitated. "There's been a discovery, sir." "A big one." "But the Admiral will explain." They stepped through the final door into the command center. The air was alive with voices and movement. Star charts glowed on overhead displays. Sensor data crawled across screens in alien and human languages alike. At the far end stood Admiral Gordon, arms crossed, staring up at a central screen displaying what appeared to be the image of a massive structure floating in space. He turned as they approached. "Reed, good to see you. Sorry to pull you in so fast, but we don't have time to ease you in." "What is that?" Reed asked, eyes on the screen. "A ship," the Admiral said, voice low. "Or something close to one. We picked it up 3 days ago." A mining vessel reported it drifting near the Arcturus belt. Initial scans flagged it as a derelict asteroid. But when they got closer, he tapped a control. The image zoomed in, revealing a sleek, elegant design buried beneath layers of cosmic dust, clearly artificial. Clearly ancient. Reed's brow furrowed. "That's not a rock." "No," Gordon said. "It's not. And based on early analysis, it might be the oldest thing we've ever found, possibly predating every known spacefaring civilization." "Any signs of life?" "No, but it's emitting faint energy signatures." "That's where things get complicated." "How complicated?" The Admiral's mouth twitched, the faintest sign of discomfort. Words already gotten out. "The alien traders on the station, they've seen the images. Some of them claim the design matches something from their oldest myths." Reed crossed his arms. "Myths?" "They call it the Harbinger. And they're not asking, they're begging us to leave it alone." A long silence hung between them. You think it's a threat? Reed asked. I don't know what it is, but it's not ours. It's not in any archive, alliance, or otherwise. And whatever it is, it's waking up. Reed took a breath, eyes back on the screen, watching the stars shimmer behind the vessel's form. Something old was out there. Something waiting. Something the galaxy had forgotten, but not forgiven. You're sending me in? The Admiral nodded. I need someone who won't jump at shadows, but won't ignore a real danger either. You're that man. Reed studied the image once more. Take the mission, but I want full autonomy once I'm aboard. Granted, the Admiral said. Choose your team. You leave in 36 hours. As Reed turned to leave, his gaze drifted across the station's windows out to the black. Beyond, a cold feeling crept up his spine. The stars no longer looked distant. It looked like they were watching. The hangar bay groaned as the exploration vessel Horizon disengaged from Outpost Epsilon, its hull casting faint reflections from the station's outer lights before slipping into the deeper dark. Commander Tom Reed stood on the bridge, arms behind his back, gazing at the silent void ahead. The stars glimmered as they always did, ancient and serene, but now they felt different. They felt aware. Dr. Lisa Mercer entered behind him, tablet in hand, expression unreadable beneath her. Tightened features. I've run the data scans 5 times, she said. The structure isn't just ancient, it's wrong. It doesn't match the architectural patterns of any known civilization. But there's something buried in the alloy signature, a resonant frequency. Reed turned slightly. Explain, she hesitated. It's faint, almost lost beneath layers of decay. But it pulses, Commander, like a heartbeat. The Horizon drifted forward at a cautious pace, every sensor straining toward the object ahead. And then they saw it. It emerged from the blackness like a ghost ship, its form concealed until the last moment by its matte black hull, which absorbed all light rather than reflect it. It wasn't just a vessel, it was presence. A silhouette of sweeping, aggressive lines forming an arrowhead that felt less designed and more grown. There was grace in its shape, purpose in its menace. Reed inhaled slowly. Is that battle? Damage? Jack Wilson, the grizzled chief engineer, leaned over his console. No, sir. That's the crazy part. That hull's flawless. 0 micrometeorite scoring. No oxidation. No decay. I don't know what it's made of, but that thing's been sitting out here for tens of thousands of years, and it hasn't aged a day. A cold shiver trickled through Reed's spine. This wasn't derelict junk. It was a time capsule from a civilization so far ahead of them, it made Earth's cutting-edge ships look like scrap. Energy readings? Reed asked. Lisa checked her instruments. Localized. Concentrated deep in the vessel's center. No movement, but it's definitely alive in there. Can we dock? Wilson shook his head. Not safely. The hull doesn't respond to our comms or link protocols. We tried to latch on. We risked triggering something. But there's a structure on the underside that looks like a hangar bay. Large enough to swallow us whole, Reed nodded. Then we go in the old-fashioned way. The crew suited up. The shuttle launched. As they approached the lower section of the vessel, the hangar's vast mouth loomed before them. They passed through its perimeter, and the lights inside flickered on. No one touched anything. Commander, Lisa whispered through the comms. The ship is responding. It's watching us. The shuttle touched down. The hangar was vast, easily capable of holding cruisers 10 times the Horizon size. Everything inside was motionless. Pristine, they disembarked into a cold silence. Their boots echoed on the smooth alloy floor. Symbols glowed faintly along the wall. Circles intersected with jagged arcs, crescents joined by forks of light. The same ones the aliens warned them about. The same ones Trell had begged them not to awaken. Reed stared at them. Doc, do they match anything? She swallowed. Some of them appeared in fragments recovered from Earth's oldest ruins, predating known civilization. But this isn't coincidence. This is design. A slow rumble echoed through the ship, vibrating through the floor and up their spines. The temperature rose by a fraction. Panels along the walls flared brighter. The ship is warming up, Wilson muttered. It's waking. They moved deeper, through corridors that curved like organic veins, not mechanical architecture. More lights activated with their presence. Doorways opened without prompting. It wasn't just waking. It was leading them. Reed led them toward the central passage, where a massive circular door blocked the path. Symbols pulsed in rhythmic succession. Like a lock waiting for the right sequence. Lisa stepped forward instinctively. Wait. Reed began. She pressed her gloved hand to the glowing sigils. They blazed to life. The door opened. Beyond it lay a chamber of light. Dozens of stations surrounded a central platform. Seats designed for humanoid forms. Consoles arranged in semicircles. All of it preserved as if frozen in time. It's a command center, Wilson whispered. A bridge. Reed moved cautiously toward the center. The moment he stepped on the platform, a pulse shot through the air. The lights dimmed, and then gathered. A beam formed. A shape emerged. It was humanoid. 7 feet tall. Composed entirely of cascading light and energy. Its body shimmered like fluid glass, but its eyes, or what passed for them, focused sharply on Reed. A voice resonated in their minds, not through the comms, not through the air, but inside them. Genetic signature recognized. Custodian lineage confirmed. Initiating protocol, Sentinel awakening. Lisa stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. It recognized you. I didn't do anything, Reed said, the light being tilted its head. You are the inheritors. The children of the Custodians. The Harbinger has awakened. The Void has noticed. The cycle begins anew. Reed stepped forward. Wait, what is the Void? The entity didn't answer. Instead, symbols began to appear around the room, forming holographic. Maps, sequences, galaxies turning in slow rotation. And at the edge of one of them, movement. A black shape, absorbing all light. Growing. Prepare, the being said, its form pulsing brighter. The devourer has returned. And this time, you are the last line. In the silence that followed, only one sound echoed, the soft, steady hum of power returning to the ship. A low, vibrating hum echoed beneath their boots, subtle but unrelenting. It came from deep within the bones of the Sentinel ship, a sound that felt less mechanical and more alive, like the slow exhale of something long dormant. Commander Tom. Reed stood on the central platform of the bridge, staring into the radiant light form hovering before him. The AI calling itself Guardian watched him without expression, its body a shimmering cascade of pale blue energy, flickering like fire. Behind crystal glass. Repeat that, Reed ordered, his voice steady but tight. Genetic signature confirmed. You carry the markers of the Custodians. You are their legacy. This vessel has awaited your return for 97,342 standard cycles. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Mercer was already scrolling through a torrent of symbols on her tablet, attempting to interface with the Sentinel systems. The internal database is massive, Commander. I've barely scratched the surface, but what? I'm seeing ... double quote. She paused, breath catching. This isn't just a warship. It's a vault, a historical archive. Reed turned to the AI. Explain. What are the Custodians? The Guardian's light flickered again, and holographic images bloomed around the command deck like firefly stars. Nebulae, alien worlds, and over it all, the unmistakable presence of colossal vessels, even larger than the Sentinel, drifting. Like silent titans through the dark, the Custodians were the first. The builders, the watchers, they seeded the stars with life. Your species was one of many placed across viable worlds. Mercer froze. You're saying humans didn't evolve on Earth? We were put there? Correct. Earth was a contingency. A garden in the shadows in case the light failed. The weight of the revelation hung in the air. No one spoke. Wilson leaned back against a console, rubbing the back of his neck. So we're not natives of Earth? We're, what, backup plans? Mercer was pale, her hands trembling slightly. I've spent my career piecing together ancient fragments, unexplained jumps in human development, evolutionary anomalies. This explains all of it. And those undeciphered pre-civilization symbols found in South America, Siberia, and on Mars, they match the Sentinel's markings. The AI continued without pause. The Custodians created the Sentinel Network 50. Vessels like this one each placed to monitor specific galactic regions. Their purpose, to combat the ancient enemy, the Void. Reed stepped closer. What is the Void? The star map shifted. One spiral arm of the galaxy dimmed, colors fading. A dark mass crept in, not like a ship or fleet, but like a shadow swallowing. The stars. The Void is not life. It is not matter. It is not energy. It is the absence of all. It spreads by consuming and unmaking. The Custodians could not destroy it, only delay its approach. This vessel is part of their final defense. Suddenly, alarms shrieked through the command deck. A console flared red with cascading data. Wilson rushed over. Commander, we've got a proximity alert from Horizon. Incoming vessels multiple. Hostile posture. Reed snapped to action. Put them on screen. The main view flared to life, showing the coal black outside the ship. Several alien vessels had dropped out of FTL, moving swiftly into formation. Their hulls bore the markings of the VTH, the Arcadians, and at least 3 others Reed didn't immediately recognize. More concerning than their sudden appearance was what followed. Energy weapon systems powering up. They're here to destroy us. Mercer whispered. The comm system flared alive with harsh static. A voice pushed through broken, accented, but unmistakable. This is Commander Rao of the VTH Ascendancy. To the human vessel, you must withdraw. Immediately. You have awakened the Harbinger. We will not allow its full activation. Reed opened the channel. This is Commander Reed of the United Earth Alliance. We've boarded the ship, yes, but it's not a threat. It's a Sentinel. A guardian against the Void. This ship was built to protect. You do not understand? Rahl snapped. You awaken that which calls to the darkness. You bring its attention to all of us. The comm fell silent. Then came the first pulse. A lance of energy shot toward the Sentinel, striking its shield with a ripple of blue light. The blast dissipated like rain on steel. Reed turned to Guardian. Do we return fire? The IS form pulsed. Alien vessels are insignificant against Custodian defenses. Recommendation: do not escalate. Maintain defensive posture. Status of our shield? Holding at 99.97%. No damage. Mercer's voice cut in sharply. Commander, we have a bigger problem. The Sentinel's activation signal, it didn't just go local. It bounced off subspace relays built into the galactic fringe. This wasn't a wake-up call, it was a beacon. Reed stared at her. A beacon to what? She turned the screen to show him. Across the map of the Milky Way, faint red dots were appearing, spreading slowly. Growing. Void activity is increasing across the outer sectors. The signal didn't. Just wake up the other Sentinels. It told the Void where to find us. Silence fell. Then Guardian spoke again, tone deeper now. The void has altered its trajectory. Estimated contact with this sector, 84 days. Current preparations insufficient. Additional Sentinels must be activated. Wilson swore under his breath. 84 days? That's barely enough time to do diagnostics, let alone staff and arm 49 more of these. The bridge lights dimmed. The central core pulsed brighter. All around them, systems began to come online, weapon nodes, shield matrices, faster than light. Nav arrays. The Sentinel was no longer asleep. It was rising. Commander, Mercer said, stepping to his side. This changes everything. Humanity's not just a galactic footnote. We were designed to be the inheritors. The Custodians left us this responsibility. We're the only species that can activate the rest. Reed looked again at the approaching alien fleet. More were arriving. More weapons were charging, but so was the warship beneath his feet, and every single alien vessel was pointing the wrong way. They think this ship is the threat, he said quietly. They don't understand it's the only thing standing between them and extinction. He turned to Guardian. Activate long-range broadcast. Translate into all known languages. Broadcast channel open. Tom stepped forward into the projection field. His voice echoed across the stars. To all listening vessels. This is Commander Tom Reed. You are afraid of what we've awakened, but the true threat is not this ship. It's what it was built to stop. It's what's coming. You want to destroy the Sentinel? Fine. But when the void arrives, and it will, there won't be a second line. This is it. Stand with us, or die in the dark. Behind him, the Sentinel glowed like a waking. Titan. Symbols flared on every wall. The ship was no longer silent. It was listening. And waiting. The stars no longer watched in silence. They blinked and shimmered like whispers of gods holding their breath as chaos unfolded across the rim of known space. The Sentinel, once a forgotten myth, now roaring with ancient energy, hung motionless. In the void, surrounded by a flotilla of alien warships. They came in waves. VTA dreadnoughts with hulls etched in warning glyphs, Arcadian cruisers humming with quantum harmonics. Kaldari spires that bristled with magneto-lances. All of them locked into position, forming a slow noose around the sleeping giant they feared and misunderstood. Inside, the bridge of the Sentinel was alive with motion. The hum of power systems climbing toward full capacity. Console lights blinking. With increasing frequency. Soft pulses ran along the walls like a heartbeat coming to life. Commander Tom Reed stood at the central interface platform, calm in posture but a storm behind his eyes. They'd uncovered humanity's forgotten origin. They'd heard the voice of the Custodians. They had been chosen. And now the galaxy they were meant to protect was rallying to destroy them before they could act. They're forming attack vectors. Wilson growled from the weapons console, eyes locked on the tactical screen. Looks like coordinated movement from 3 different fleets. They're not just here to talk anymore. Tom's jaw tightened. They won't fire without giving us one last warning. At least the VTH won't. Trell said they still honor ritual before destruction. A new chime rang out from the communications array. Mercer looked up from her station, eyes sharp. Incoming transmission. VTH flagship. It's not encrypted. Get through, Reed said. The main screen filled with the image of a VTH warlord Commander Raul, his obsidian-scaled face framed by ceremonial gold. Black eyes narrowed into slits of warning. His voice, when it came, was distorted by translator. Static, but there was no mistaking the fury. You were warned, Earthborn. The Harbinger must not rise. Its light brings ruin. Its voice summons the Ender. You have not inherited salvation, you have inherited the curse. Reed stepped forward, measured and unafraid. The Sentinel is not the curse. It's the shield. Your ancestors saw the Custodian ships before the darkness arrived and mistook cause for effect. The ship didn't bring the void. It was there to fight it. Rahl hissed. Do not twist the words of the dead. Our oldest blood remembers. Where? These ships awaken, stars begin to die. No, Tom said, voice firm. They die without them. There was a long silence on the line. Then Rahl said something chilling. We have retrieved ancient recordings from the time of shadow. In them, we hear screams in your voice. The transmission ended. Dr. Mercer paled. That's impossible. If their ancestors recorded human voices, it means some humans fought in the last war, Tom finished. Or we were there before. Suddenly, alarms flared. A shrill cascade of warning lights flooded the interface panels. Wilson's fingers flew across the controls. Weapons charging on multiple ships. Looks like kinetic lances and gravitic destabilizers. They're going to try to breach the hull disable. US before we go active. Guardian? Tom barked. The life form flickered into existence, more defined than ever. It stood tall beside him, glowing lines coiling around its limbs like circuitry made flesh. Hostile actions confirmed. Current. Shield integrity at 99.2%. Sentinel systems remain in defensive mode. No retaliatory strike initiated. Can you protect the horizon? Reed asked. They'll target our support ship first. Affirmative. Extending barrier field. In the void outside, blue-white. Light expanded like a breath, enveloping the horizon in shimmering energy. On the tactical map, red warning symbols bloomed like infected wounds. They're going to force our hand, Wilson said darkly. Tom's thoughts raced. If they fired back even defensively, they risked igniting a full-scale war. Dozens of species would unite against them out of fear. But if they did nothing, the Sentinel could be disabled before it reached combat readiness, and then the galaxy would be defenseless against the void. Mercer suddenly turned. Commander, I found something in the database. It's a language protocol. Visual meant for civilizations not directly connected to Custodian culture. Guardian can use it to project historical memory and universally comprehensible images. Tom narrowed his eyes. You're saying we can show them the truth? She nodded. Not just words. Not data, memory, vision, emotion, like a dream shared across species. Guardian, Tom said, prepare a full projection memory package. Focus on the Void War. Show the Sentinels defending inhabited systems. Show the Custodians dying to save them. Complying. Visual resonance protocol initializing. Outside, the alien fleets began to shift, weapons fully primed. Inside, the Sentinel ship bloomed with light. It began with a hum, a low vibration that passed through every vessel in the vicinity. A signal not heard, but felt. The projection burst from the Sentinel like a wave, shimmering across space. Thousands of minds, human, Arcadian, VTH, Keldari, and more, were suddenly swept into visions not their own. They saw the galaxy as it was tens of millennia ago. They saw stars go dark one by one as tendrils of void wrapped around systems like hungry fingers. They saw Custodian ships forming a line across the spiral arms, their energy barriers repelling the unthinkable. They saw humans, proto-humans, standing at control stations inside the ships, fighting, dying, resisting. They saw Earth, a tiny green orb among millions, being chosen, planted, hidden. They saw the Custodians fall. And they saw why. When the vision ended, the projection vanished. The com channels lit up. One by one, alien commanders appeared, not as aggressors, but as believers. The Arcadian Elder Trell spoke first. The vision is undeniable. It matches our sacred dreamstones, You are truly of the Custodians." Commander Rail of the VTH reappeared, now silent for several moments. Then he gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Then the myths were true, and we were wrong." Tom's shoulders relaxed. But Guardian's voice returned, grave and unchanged. Diplomatic resolution achieved. "However, void activity at coordinate 713C has spiked. Projected arrival of advance entity, 16 days, 3 hours." Reed stared into the map of approaching darkness. 16 days. Everything had changed. And nothing had changed. The galaxy had finally opened its eyes. But the clock was still ticking. And in the silence of deep space, something far worse than any myth had already begun to stir. The Sentinel hung in the void like a blade poised in silence. No longer just a relic. It pulsed with life. Symbols on its hull shimmered like stars collapsing in reverse. Running lines of custodian code through alloys no human scientist had names for. Inside, the command deck was bathed in shifting hues of energy as systems came online one after another, as if remembering what it once was. And what it was meant to become. Commander Tom Reed stood at the center of it all, staring at the star map now alive before him. Red, blinking, growing. The void had changed direction. Guardian's voice was calm, precise and devoid of emotion, yet it sank into their bones with the weight of inevitability. Update. Advanced void entity has accelerated. Estimated arrival in this sector reduced to 13.7 days. Trajectory consistent with intelligence gathering scout construct. Primary intent, evaluate Sentinel threat level. Secondary intent, terminate. Dr. Lisa Mercer sat frozen at her console, her fingers hovering over the screen. "Commander, that's not enough time. We need months to understand even half of what this ship can do." "We don't have months," Reed said. "We barely have weeks." Across the bridge, Wilson slammed a diagnostic module shut and stalked toward the center. Grease stained his sleeves, and a bead of sweat traced down his temple. Engines are running. Weapons are warming. Internal power grids are syncing. But I'm telling you, Commander, we still don't have a full crew. We're running at 69% system readiness. One shorted circuit, one misfire in a rail feed, and this ship could turn itself into a starburst. "Then we don't let it fail," Reed said firmly. "We need 12 humans at the core systems." Guardian confirmed that's the minimum for full combat functionality. "And we only have 7 trained for interface-level command," Mercer added. "The others, well, they weren't prepared for this." Reed exhaled, his gaze locked on the advancing tendril of darkness crossing the galactic spiral. "They'll have to learn fast." A chime rang out across the ship, a signal routed through Guardian's network. "Incoming transmission, Outpost Epsilon. Admiral Gordon." "Put it through," Reed said. The hologram shimmered into place. Admiral Gordon's face was strained, older somehow. Behind him, Outpost Epsilon's command center buzzed with activity. Every console was lit. The station itself looked like a beehive before a storm. "Commander," the Admiral began, "you need to brace for an influx. We've rerouted 17 top-tier officers and engineers to you. Best we've got left. They're inbound on a high-priority courier shuttle. Ada, 6 hours." Reed felt a flicker of hope. "That gives us the minimum crew." "There's more," Gordon said, leaning forward. "The alien fleets. They're changing position, not retreating this time, not attacking either. They've begun organizing their own formations, defensive walls, some kind of joint perimeter. They're preparing to fight with you." "What changed their minds?" Reed asked. "You did," the Admiral said. "And the projection. They believed it. Trell calls it the echo of the ancients. Apparently, The spiritual leaders have begun treating you as a prophetic figure. A returned voice from the Dark Age. Reed shook his head. I'm just a soldier. They want profits. They're looking in the wrong place. They don't care. They just want to live. The Admiral's image flickered as the signal destabilized slightly. We've also confirmed that other Sentinels are waking. Not all, but at least 9 are showing initial activation pulses. 3 are near inhabited systems. We've already dispatched human teams to the closest ones, but the others are in politically volatile zones, and some are just gone, silent. Reed's voice dropped. Do we have any confirmation of Void? Contact? Gordon hesitated. We've lost contact with Outpost Stratus 9 in the Drexler sector. All long-range comms went dark. No emergency beacon, no distress call, just silence. Dr. Mercer glanced up. That's where the earliest Void readings originated. We believe the advance force reached them first, Gordon said quietly. I'm sorry. The silence after that was deep. It was the kind that made you feel the scale of the stars. The kind that reminded you how small your defenses were when eternity came knocking. Understood. Sir, Reed said. The transmission ended. For a moment, no one moved. Then Reed turned to the crew, his voice calm but edged in steel. We have less than 14 days. This ship must be combat ready in 7. Wilson, coordinate engineering training for the new arrivals. Mercer, you're to work with Guardian on tactical simulations. I want every station manned, every interface tested. We're not just preparing to defend ourselves. We're the first. He looked up at the map where the darkness had grown just a little closer. The Sentinel must hold. Hours passed. Then 6. Then 12. The new crew arrived, men and women from every branch of Earth's defense and science programs. Most had never seen war. Fewer had ever stepped foot on an alien ship, but none asked questions. They came, saw the scale of what they faced, and said yes. Guardian trained them at a pace that would have broken any normal mind. But the ship's systems responded to their DNA, adapting as if recognizing their rightful place. Some stations seemed to remember them. 2 days later, the Sentinel was humming with new life. At 84% readiness, the ship's internal energy field began to expand. Weapon nodes gleamed like starlight, aimed into the abyss. The purification beams, dormant for over 90,000 years, flickered with impossible power. And then it came, not with fanfare or flashes of light. Not with fire, with absence. From the black came the Scout, a silhouette at first wrong in every way. Its shape was never still, folding and unfolding across dimensions. A patch of space where light died, where stars behind it bent inward, pulled like threads into a black loom. Every alien ship fell into total silence. On the Sentinels bridge, Guardian spoke. Void entity has arrived. Defensive engagement begins now. Tom Reed stood, surrounded by his crew, bathed in the cold light of a weapon built to hold back the dark. For one long heartbeat, he stared into that approaching mass and felt its hunger. Lock all systems, he said. Begin targeting sequence. Outside, the creature shifted, and then it lunged. The first strike came without warning. There was no flash, no thunderous boom across the stars. Just a pulse, silent, invisible to the naked eye, but as devastating as a blade slipped between ribs. It struck the Sentinel's barrier field like a ghost colliding with glass, and for the briefest moment, space itself rippled. Inside the ship, the lights dimmed. Alarms flared. Every console blinked red as the wave passed through systems not made to comprehend the thing that had touched them. Impact registered, Guardian announced. No physical damage. Energy field integrity reduced to 92%. Void signal contains disruptive waveform non-material, entropy-based. Commander Tom Reed gripped the edge of the command platform. The bridge was a blur of movement as his new crew locked into position. Every human operator had only days of training, barely enough to understand the layout, let alone comprehend the full scope of the ship's alien systems. And yet, they moved with eerie synchronicity. The Sentinel responded to them, not perfectly, not without error, but like an ancient mind reawakening in familiar hands. Status on purification beams? Reed demanded. Wilson, sweat beading on his brow, shouted back. Charged and tracking. Target's not a traditional mass, though no clear heat signature. No electromagnetic field. We're going in blind. Then we trust what Guardian gives us. Dr. Mercer's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. Commander, the Void's form is collapsing inward. It's adapting. It knows we see it. It's shaping itself to avoid targeting solutions. On the main display, the Void Scout was visible now not as a ship, but a shadow stitched into the fabric of space. Its tendrils moved like fluid strands of thought, seeking entry points in the barrier, folding and unfolding with impossible geometry. Reed narrowed his eyes. It's testing us. Guardian's light form appeared beside him, now steadier, sharper than before, almost human in shape. Its voice rang out across the bridge. Enemy entity is performing probe sequence seeking frequency instability in shield harmonics. Purpose: identify systemic vulnerabilities. Projection: entity will escalate in 143 seconds. Mercer's hands flew across her console. I'm adjusting our field modulation. We can vary shield pulses, make them unpredictable, harder to model. Do it, Reed said. Wilson opened targeting lattice. I want all beam turrets online. The moment we see a structural breach, we fire. The Void did not wait. Nan. Instant, 3 tendrils shot forward, slamming into the shield from multiple angles, sending arcs of ghostly static through the ship's systems. One penetrated halfway through before dissipating like ink swallowed by a solvent. Shield holding, Guardian said. Integrity at 86%. No onboard contamination. But something had changed. Everyone felt it. Inside their minds, just a flicker. A thought that wasn't theirs. A whisper without language. A pressure behind the eyes. For a heartbeat, each crew member on the Sentinel felt watched. Reed's voice cut across the tension. Target identified? Wilson gave a curt nod. Confirmed. Pulse cannon locking. It's exposing its core. The purification beams lit up. Twin arcs of blue-white energy erupted from the ship's hull, crossing kilometers in microseconds. They struck the mass where the darkness was thickest, and the effect was instantaneous. The Void reeled. It didn't shatter. It didn't burn. It recoiled, collapsing in on itself like a dying thought. The tendrils withdrew, and for a moment, silence returned. But the threat had only just begun. Commander, Mercer said, her voice sharp with alarm. The entity is splitting. On the tactical screen, the dark shape fragmented. Dozens of smaller tendrils peeled away, forming independent swarms, microentities, each with its own trajectory. They're trying to flank us, Wilson growled. Get behind the barrier field, Guardian confirmed it. New threat detected. Sub-entities bypassing direct engagement. Objective: test hull integrity at contact points. Recommend external drone deployment. Deploy them, Reed snapped. Small bays across the Sentinel's dorsal surface opened, releasing clouds of Guardian drones, compact, insect-like machines armed with beam casters and sensory arrays. They swarmed outward, forming tight counterformations. The Voidlings reached them. Where they met, space lit up with strobe flashes of annihilation matter and antimatter flickering into and out of existence. The drones moved like an immune system fighting infection. They were quick, efficient, but they were outnumbered. Drone losses at 38%, Guardian announced. Enemy adapting. Reed clenched his fists. If we can't win this in the micro, we force it back at the macro. Begin charging the singularity. Lance. The bridge went dead quiet. Wilson turned slowly. You're authorizing a full-core weapon discharge? We can't let this thing learn more about us. If it escapes to report back to the main body, the Void comes smarter next time. This is our chance. Mercer paled. The singularity, Lance, is a directed gravity collapse. If we miss the gravitational arc curves, it won't miss. Reed said, voice steel. Guardian's glow pulsed in agreement. Weapon system charging. Estimated time to discharge, 42 seconds. Target lock established. Outside, the Void Scout began to react. The mass folded inward, drawing it scattered. Limbs back. For the first time, it retreated. It felt what was coming. The Sentinel pulsed with power. A ripple of space folded around its core, and from its front, a weapon unlike any humanity had ever seen began to manifest, a spear of blue-black light, humming with compressed gravity. Singularity, Lance, 97%. Mercer whispered, it's running. Reed narrowed his eyes. Not fast enough. 100% firing. The ship shuddered, not from recoil, but from reality bending. The Lance screamed across the void. Silent and final. It hit. The Void Scout folded inward, crushed under its own dimensions. Light bent, sound ceased. For one horrible moment, the universe forgot what gravity was. Then it was over. The void was gone. Erased. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Erased. The bridge was silent. Reed stood at the helm, staring into the space where the creature had vanished. Only starlight remained. And yet, the weight in the room did not lift. Because Guardian spoke again. Its voice no longer calm. Not alarmed, but urgent. Alert. Residual quantum signal detected. Enemy entity transmitted final echo before termination. Destination. Origin point of void field. Estimated time to full-scale response, 73 days. Dr. Mercer turned to Reed, horror blooming behind her eyes. It knows we can fight back. It knows we're awake. Reed turned to the crew, his voice even, unshaken. Then let it come. We'll be ready. The stars were still bleeding when the dead silence broke. 3 days had passed since the Sentinel unleashed the Singularity Lance and erased the Void Scout from existence. But its final act, a transmission of unknown design, had been successful. The Warship systems had recorded it, a burst of data more complex than anything human science could decipher. Not a message. A scream, and something heard it. Now the galaxy knew. From the core systems of the United Earth, Alliance to the arcane signal cathedrals of the Arcadians and the gravity web observatories of the VTH Ascendancy, a singular truth spread like wildfire. The darkness had returned. And the Sentinel had answered it, but the Sentinel was only one, and the void was infinite. Commander Tom Reed stood before the galaxy's greatest gathering since the last collapse. The warship's command hall had been restructured into a holographic chamber, and before him flickered the faces of 31 species. Some humanoid, some insectoid, some plasma-born, all silent as Reed addressed them not as a representative of Earth, but as the voice of the Custodian legacy. We were all wrong, he said. Humans believed we were alone. You believed we were the last born, the youngest, the least significant, but our ancestors. Your myths, they all tell the same story. He gestured, and Guardian activated the Custodian archive. Around them bloomed images of the First War, galaxies aflame, civilizations torn from the roots, planets hollowed and darkened. And across the void, vast machines, sentinels sacrificing themselves to hold the line, each one piloted by custodian life. And every custodian human in shape, in biology. In soul, the void doesn't kill like we do, it erases. Memory, matter, meaning, gone. The sentinels weren't just weapons. They were anchors, reminders that someone stood between the dark and everything else. They weren't just built for us. They were built by us. He stepped forward into the center of the display, where the galaxy's spiral glowed softly. 17 more sentinels have awakened in the past 2 days. 4 have been claimed by human crews dispatched from our inner systems. The rest are still out there, dormant, waiting, and we don't have time to wait much longer. A ripple of unease passed through the alien delegates. A Valari general opened his mandibles and spoke, his translator crackling. We have no humans to give, not for every sentinel. You would ask us to wait for your kind while the darkness spreads? Tom didn't flinch. We're not asking for time. We're asking for cooperation. Guardian says the sentinels will not function without human genetic command, but they will move. If you can protect them, guide them, we'll send the operators. We'll get there. An Arcadian priestess bowed her blue-skinned head. Our histories warned of this age, the return of the devourer, the awakening of the starborn. We doubted the myth. Now we must live it. It was not unanimous. There were species still wary, still skeptical. But something had shifted. The Sentinel had fought the void, and it had one dot later that day Tom returned to the Warship's True Bridge. The atmosphere had changed. Where once the crew worked in uncertainty and awe, they now moved with grim purpose. The 12 human operators, those bonded to key systems, were sharper, faster, more intuitive. The Sentinel wasn't just obeying their commands. It was learning from them. Guardian materialized beside Reed, its form more defined than ever. No longer an amorphous being of light, it now bore the outline of a custodian, a tall, angular figure draped in geometric strands of energy. ***, Commander Reed, it said. Void activity confirmed at 5 new galactic coordinates. 1 sentinel has gone dark, no response. Presumed compromised. Tom's voice dropped. Which one? Designation: Sentinel 24, located near the Tersic Expanse. Contact lost 17 minutes ago. Last transmission indicated environmental distortion consistent with pre-void incursion conditions. Reed turned to Mercer, who had just entered. Is there a projection of the void's growth? She nodded grimly and called it up. Map: glowing blue sentinels blinked in slow pulses. But near the Tersic Expanse, a single point flared red. Then another. And another. A spreading stain? They're accelerating, Mercer said. The void is responding to our response. It's sending more scouts faster, testing our reaction time. Or drawing our attention away from the main path, Wilson added. Classic flanking maneuver. Guardian spoke again. Based on trajectory analysis, the main body of the void is expected to breach the Perseus boundary in 67 days. Once past, the core systems of the Galactic Alliance will be within reach. Silence. Again. Then Tom straightened. Activate. Fleet protocol. Send instructions to every system with a functional sentinel. Begin coordination through Guardian's network. We're not just defending now. We're preparing for a preemptive response, Mercer blinked. You want to strike first? No, he said, but I want them to know we can. Outside the Sentinel, space rippled with new arrivals. Fleets. Explorers, scientists, ships that once feared the Harbinger, now moved into formation around it. And through the dark came a new signal. Guardian intercepted and translated it without request. This is Sentinel 6. Commander Dana K.O. Earth Expeditionary Force. We've activated the vessel. System online. Ready for orders. A second. Sentinel 17. Docked and crewed. Awaiting fleet integration. And a third. Sentinel 3. Response signal confirmed. Sentinel network is awakening. Tom allowed himself one breath of hope. They were no longer alone. Humanity had answered the call. The Sentinels were returning. And the void, for the first time in 100,000 years, was being hunted. The Sentinel's hull glowed with a quiet, determined fury. Where once it had drifted in forgotten silence, cloaked in cosmic dust and myth, now it burned like a warning beacon in the dark. Its systems hummed with awakened power, its weapons silent, but ready, and around it a fleet had formed, not out of conquest or ambition, but out of desperation and belief. Commander Tom Reed stood in the center of the command bridge, watching the starfield through the panoramic display. It looked serene, beautiful even, but that illusion had long since shattered. Beyond the stars, something moved. Something vast, something ancient. And it was coming. Void anomaly detected, Guardian said, its voice sharp and crystalline. Advance force confirmed, larger than previous scout class. Estimated contact, 11 hours, 27 minutes. Dr. Mercer looked up from her console, pale but focused. It's not a single entity this time, it's a swarm. Multiple event signatures moving together, unified but independent, like a hive intelligence. Size? Tom asked. Big enough to overwhelm an unprepared system in minutes, she replied grimly. This isn't another test, Commander. This is a strike team. Wilson stepped forward, wiping his hands on a rag already soaked with coolant grease. Engineering's ready. Power grid stable. Weapons charged. Shield array's been harmonized based on the last void signature. But if this force is big or meaner, we're going to need more than one miracle. Reed nodded. Then it's a good thing we aren't alone. He turned back to the command interface and gestured. The star map bloomed into view. Across the spiral arm, blue icons pulsed more sentinels. They were few, still far too few, but the network was waking. Sentinel 3 had anchored near a derelict mining colony in the Ferrax system. Sentinel 6, under Commander Dana Ko, had begun testing its long-range interdiction grid. Sentinel 17 was already escorting refugee convoys from outer colonies, its purification beams vaporizing small void fragments caught in gravitational eddies. The Sentinel warships were rising like ancient titans stirred from slumber. And Earth was watching. The Alliance Council, after weeks of silence, had finally gone public. Every screen on every world now showed the same broadcast. The void was real, and it was coming. Humanity had not been born by accident, but by design. Not children of chance, but of inheritance. The Custodians had built the first line, and now their descendants must build the last. Tom still remembered the stunned silence that followed the broadcast. Not panic. Not riots. Something quieter. Awe. For the first time in history, humanity understood its place in the cosmos. And its purpose. The Sentinel's proximity alarm suddenly flared. Here they come. Wilson muttered. On the screen, the stars vanished. Replaced by darkness, not a shadow, but an absence, a stretch of space so utterly void that light bent away from it. Tendrils writhed from the edges of the mass like streams of liquid night, each one lashing forward at impossible speeds. Enemy swarm count, 47, Guardian announced. Targeting pattern, coordinated assault. Adaptive formations. Learning from prior engagement. They remember the lance, Mercer whispered, and they're angry. Reed replied. Outside, the defense fleet prepared. Arcadian cruisers shifted into a crescent pattern. VFA warships clustered into rotating rings, cycling shield frequencies. Even the Kaldari, previously silent observers, had positioned their gravity towers in defensive arcs around the Sentinel. They had no hope of surviving a full void assault, but they stood ready regardless. "They know they're outmatched," Wilson said, "but they showed up anyway." "That's what makes them allies," Reed replied. "Not that they can fight, that they still choose to." The first tendril struck. The impact sent a shock wave rippling through the barrier field, throwing distortion across every console. The Sentinel shuddered, but held. The void swarm broke into waves, crashing against the shields, searching for weakness, splitting and reforming again and again. "Shield at 81%, Guardian warned. External defense platforms deploying." From the underside of the Sentinel's hull, dozens of beam turrets extended. Micro-drones launched into the fray, their trails streaking like comets across the battle-scarred dark. The purification. Beams fired, lancing through the swarm with surgical precision. Where the beams struck, the void retreated, scorched from reality. But for every fragment destroyed, 2 more pressed in. Mercer's screen flashed red. They're coordinating, now changing. Waveform harmonics to destabilize our outer perimeter. They're trying to collapse the shield layer by layer. "Then we hit back harder," Reed ordered. "Target the central cluster. Fire the purification arcs." The Sentinel responded. Massive beams ignited from the warship's dorsal spine, sweeping in wide arcs across space, carving through the darkness with blinding white light. The void recoiled, but it did not fall back. It split, diverted, enveloped. "They're trying to consume the beams," Wilson growled. "Feeding off the energy. That's new." "No," Guardian said calmly. "That is adaptation and evolution. A warning. This swarm has learned to manipulate our primary weapon protocols. Initiating contingency." "What contingency?" "Read." Demanded. The answer came in the form of movement. The Sentinel turned. Not drifted. Turned. Engaged thrusters with such sudden force that the command deck tilted. "Guardian, what are you doing?" "Initiating weapon convergence. Channeling energy into subspace crucible. Preparing to deploy convergence cannon." Mercer's eyes widened. "The what?" Wilson just stared. "I didn't even know we had that." "Because the Custodians never used it," Guardian said. "It is not designed to destroy. It is designed to erase." Outside, the swarm converged, and the Sentinel stood. Alone. The sky turned white. Reality bent inward. The convergence cannon fired. It was not a beam, not a projectile. It was a ripple in space-time, a singularity of purpose, a weapon built not to kill, but to rewrite. The void met it head-on, and screamed. Sound less, violent, universal. The swarm cracked, folded, shattered. When the light faded, the battlefield was empty. No wreckage, no trails. The swarm was gone. "Confirmed," Guardian said. "Void incursion, neutralized. Residual entropy levels falling." Silence. Then a soft chime. "Incoming transmission. Sentinel 9. Void contact confirmed at edge of Trath system. Requesting tactical support." Another. "Sentinel 12. Under siege. Defense failing. Need reinforcements." Another. "Sentinel 27, Sentinel 5, Sentinel 21. All across the galaxy, the war had begun. Reed stood motionless, eyes locked on the expanding map, blue blinking lights, red warnings, lines of movement. The Sentinel had won its battle. Now the fleet had to win a war. "Guardian," Reed said, "begin network-wide coordination. Prepare system-wide defense protocol. Open channels to all allied species." He paused. "And notify Earth Command." The real fight just started. The Sentinel no longer drifted. It moved with purpose, cutting through space with the grace of a predator that had remembered its hunt. Where once it had floated silent and forgotten at the edge of the galaxy, now it pulsed like a living star, its hull alive with custodian runes that shimmered with each maneuver, each activation of its ancient core. But this was not the Sentinel of 3 weeks ago. It had changed, and so had everything else. Commander Tom Reed stood in the center of the command bridge, watching the great spiral of the galaxy on the main display. Red streaks arced through the star map, void incursions accelerating beyond any projection. 12 Sentinels were now fully active, each under human command, but they were losing ground. The void was spreading faster than even Guardian had predicted. Sentinels 9 and 12 were barely holding their sectors. Sentinel 27 had gone silent entirely, and Earth was now within theoretical reach in just under 40 days. Incoming interfleet transmission, Guardian announced, its voice sharper than usual. High priority channel, Alliance delegation. Put it through, Reed said. The holographic projection flared to life, revealing a chaotic council chamber. Lights flickered behind the delegates. Static flared across the feed. A Keldari administrator's voice cut through the noise first. This is Outpost Dan 4. We have engaged a void fragment over Huron's edge. Civilian losses are mounting. Our orbital defense grid is failing. Where is your support? An Arcadian emissary followed. The Trath system is collapsing. The void is absorbing planetary cores. We have seen this before. In the legends, we need another Sentinel. Reed held up a hand. We hear you. We've dispatched units from Sentinel 6 and 10. They'll arrive in 17 hours. That won't be fast enough, the VTH war leader rasped. His face was battered. Behind him, his ship's hull flickered with containment field failures. The void has evolved again. They split now. They multiply. They don't just come from without, they're starting to bloom from within. Infected gravity wells. Seeded anomalies. Dr. Mercer stepped forward, her eyes wide. Void bloom. Events. We theorized it might happen, but not this soon. Reed didn't blink. You're saying it's seeding itself inside space? She nodded. It's not just invading anymore. It's rewriting reality. Like viral code written into the physics of space-time. If it continues, even the Sentinels won't survive contact zones. We'll be fighting in warped dimensions where light no longer obeys. The weight of her words dropped like iron in the room. Then we move now, Reed said. We don't wait. Guardian issue full fleet orders. All Sentinels to deploy at maximum speed. Prioritize defense of high-density population centers. No outposts. No isolated stations. We save the hubs, or we lose the whole network. Understood, Guardian replied. Command transmission relayed. All vessels responding. But something else was happening. As the orders spread, the star map shifted again, this time. Not red. Blue. Faint signals flickered in systems long thought uninhabited. Derelict moons. Ancient ruins. Forgotten dead zones. New data incoming. Guardian said, this time with something Reed had never heard before. Hesitation. What is it? 30 new energy signatures matching dormant custodian installations, previously inactive, now responding to the network. Mercer gasped. They're waking up. Not just the warships, the archives. Reed frowned. What do you mean? The Custodians didn't just build ships, she explained. They built planets, cradles, think tanks, genetic vaults. Places where they hid technology too dangerous to use, or too important to destroy. Guardian confirmed it. These facilities contain knowledge caches and experimental defense constructs. Some may contain custodian-based intelligences. AI? Wilson asked. More than AI, simulated custodian minds. Echoes of those who built the Sentinels. Tom's mind raced. We can use them? Guardian hesitated. They were locked for a reason, but Reed didn't hesitate. Unlock 1, the nearest. Let's see what the Custodians left behind for us. Within minutes, a secondary display showed the target, the planet Naresh, located in a void-adjacent system. Once barren, it now pulsed with internal energy. As the Sentinel altered course and jumped toward the coordinates, Mercer tapped furiously on her console. "I'm pulling old Custodian legends," she said. Naresh was considered sacred in 3 different species mythologies. The Arcadians called it the dying star's secret. The Keldari believed it was cursed, but the humans ... She stopped, her breath catching. Reed turned. "What did we call it?" "We never had a name for it," she said quietly. "Because according to this, Earth's earliest ancestors were forbidden from going there. Even the Custodians feared what they left behind." The Sentinel emerged from FTL with a lurch. Before them hung Naresh, a cracked, burnt world orbiting a pale star. Surface temperature, minus 210 degrees Celsius. No atmosphere. No life. And yet, beneath its surface, something pulsed. They descended into orbit, deploying ground survey drones and activating resonance scanners. Guardian interfaced directly with the planet's core signal. Within seconds, a hidden structure revealed itself miles beneath the crust. A vault, sealed in material harder than neutronium, laced with Custodian energy coils, and a voice. Not Guardians, something older, deeper, designated inheritor detected. Identity confirmed, opening gate of the forgotten. From orbit, they watched as the crust of the planet cracked along ancient seams. A circle of glowing energy formed, wider than any city, revealing a shaft that led to a structure buried in the planet's mantle, a Custodian repository. A fragment of the first race. Reed turned to Guardian. "What's inside?" "Uncertain," the AI replied. "But we are now visible to all void entities in this quadrant. By accessing this place, we have lit a beacon in the darkness." And indeed, the star map began to shift again. Red. All red. Every void fragment within 100 light-years had changed course, heading straight for Naresh. Reed watched as the data updated in real time. The Sentinel fleet had begun to rally. The alien armadas were moving to defend, and Earth had launched its final wave of operator crews to every reachable Sentinel. A battle was coming bigger than the scout attacks, bigger than the swarm. The void wanted Naresh silenced. It wanted what was buried there forgotten, because it remembered what the Custodians had tried to hide. And feared it. Reed turned to his crew. "Prepare for planetary defense. Set orbital shield protocols. I want all ground entry teams armed and ready," Wilson grunted. "We're about to find out what even the gods were afraid of." Dr. Mercer's fingers hovered over her tablet. "We're about to find out what the gods left behind." Beneath the dead world of Naresh, history stirred in its sleep. The Custodians had buried many things during the last war against the void, knowledge too dangerous, truths too heavy for civilizations that had yet to evolve beyond fear. But nothing matched what they had entombed here, deep within the mantle of this forgotten world. The core of echoes. Now, it was waking. And every void fragment in the quadrant was coming to stop it. Above, the Sentinel bristled in orbit, surrounded by the largest allied fleet ever assembled. Hundreds of alien vessels, sleek Arcadian skimmers, Brutalist the Fifth dreadships, translucent Solari bloomers, even Earth's newly christened Leviathan-class battlecruisers all formed a massive defense shell around Naresh. And at its heart stood the Sentinel fleet, 9 ships now online, their Custodian cores glowing like god fire. But for Commander Tom Reed and his crew, the true battle wasn't in space. It was underground. The moment the vault opened, the energy field surrounding it had surged like a sun being born. Reed, Dr. Mercer, Wilson, and a hand-picked team of human operators descended into the planet's crust in drop pods. Guided by Guardian's tether. The structure was beyond architecture. It wasn't built, it had grown. Smooth corridors spiraled inward like a nautilus shell, with surfaces that shifted under observation. Lights pulsed in time with their footsteps, and as they moved deeper, voices echoed in the walls, not speaking words, but ideas. Memory, sacrifice, failure, fear, hope. Mercer clutched her scanner, wide-eyed. This place. It's alive. Or, at least reactive. It's learning from us as we move. What is it? Reed asked. Guardian's voice responded, but even it sounded different, more reverent. This is the Custodian Echo Core, a collective consciousness. All those who died fighting the void. Their minds were stored here, not AI, not simulation, actual consciousness. They reached the final chamber. A platform of white stone floated in a void of light, suspended by nothing. At its center was a crystal monolith 3 meters tall, flickering with a million lights. It pulsed as they approached, and a voice entered their minds. Not mechanical. Not translated. Human. You have awakened the last memory. Reed stepped forward. Are you the Custodians? We are the sum of what they became. We are the choice they made to remain behind and remember. What did you bury here? Mercer asked. The crystal pulsed again. Not a weapon. A warning. A truth we could not carry into the next age. What truth? Reed demanded. That the void was not an invader. It was our creation. The chamber fell silent. What do you mean? Mercer asked, breath caught in her throat. We sought to control entropy, to eliminate death, to make the galaxy eternal. We built machines to cancel decay, erase entropy, reverse collapse, but we did not understand the balance. What we created broke the rules of reality. It grew, fed, it became hungry, and thus the void was born. Wilson stepped back. You're telling me you created the thing that ended. We tried to destroy it. We failed, so we sacrificed everything to stop it from spreading. We sealed the truth here because no civilization would follow us if they knew what we had done. But now, you must know, because it remembers us, and it knows you are our legacy. Above them, alarms flared. Guardian's voice cut through the moment, sharp and loud. Void Fleet arrival confirmed. 37 incursion points, 5 null hulls. 1 core entity approaching. Estimated mass equivalent, half a star. It is coming directly for Narish. Reed turned. How long? 19 minutes, he looked to Mercer. Can we do anything? With this core? Can it help us? She stared at the crystal, then nodded slowly. Maybe. If we can link the Sentinel's network to it, we could amplify the Custodian field. Project the truth, this truth, across the void. You want to tell them? Wilson asked. You want to explain to the void that we're sorry? No, she said. I want to give the void what it doesn't have. Reed understood. Memory, emotion, guilt, Guardian, he said. Establish link. Prepare a full network broadcast. Use the core of echoes as the origin point. The Sentinel pulsed in response, even from orbit. Outside, the battle began. Void ships descended like black meteors, warping gravity with their presence. Fleets fired in unison, beams crisscrossing the sky, flak bursting like suns. Alien ships fell. Human warships burned. And still the void came, endless and hungry. But the Sentinels held the line, and then it happened. The Echo Core surged. A wave of light burst outward, unseen, unfelt, except by the void. In the deepest layers of the enemy fleet, hesitation spread. Tendrils slowed. Formations faltered. as if something inside them had been remembered. Across the battlefield, void, creatures began to shudder, not in pain. In confusion. In awakening. Inside the core chamber, Reed heard it, felt it, a whisper, a wordless cry. Not rage. Regret. The core entity spoke again. We built the void, but you are the key to its redemption. Outside, the largest void entity reached the edge of Narish's orbit. It was colossal, larger than any moon, its form constantly shifting, folding in dimensions the eye couldn't follow. It paused. For the first time in eons it paused. And then, with a shudder like a dying god, it collapsed inward, not from destruction. From choice. The truth had reached it. The battle ended not in fire, but in silence. The void withdrew, not defeated, but changed. It left behind nothing, and the stars were still. Weeks passed. The Sentinel returned to Earth, escorted by ships from a dozen worlds. News spread faster than light. The void was gone, or at least dormant, changed, and for the first time in recorded history, the entire galaxy breathed together. Atop the Sentinel's highest deck, Tom Reed stood alone, staring at the planet below, Earth, his home. Once a lost seed in a forgotten galaxy. Now the light that saved them all. Mercer joined him, quiet. Do you think it's over? She asked. No, Reed said. But I think it understands now. They stood in silence, watching the sun rise over Earth's curvature. Behind them, Guardian flickered to life. New Custodian signal detected. Distant galaxy. Ancient pattern. Reed smiled faintly. Then it's not just us. Mercer looked up. You mean, we were never the last, he said. Only the first to remember. And far across the stars, in a galaxy just waking to its own myths, a second Sentinel stirred.